coming in. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Three Guys and a Ball. And today's ball was going to be what is security? But in light of the last 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about active shooter, active threat, how it relates to you, and what can you do about it. Jake, what do you got, man?
All right. So in the last week, we have seen some horrible incidents occur in public places. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how we hear about these things with our ways of communication, whether it's our phones, through emails, or just conversations with other people. And one of the most concerning parts about it is when I get a message, an alert, 10 dead, 4 wounded, shooting here, shooting there. That stuff's hard to process for us because those are lives that were just taken, but we hear about it immediately as in fear-based, 10 dead, 4 wounded, or 2 dead, 8 wounded. So I want to share a little bit about a headline that I saw right after the Colorado shootings at the supermarket. And this one really helped me process this is what will help us if we see headlines like this after these incidents. Because violence is it's not new. Violence is not something that humanity is just starting to do. It's been around for the entire time of humanity. Now, what's important is remembering that humans are the apex predator out there in this world. Okay. So if I heard a headline like this, man describes grandkids escape from Colorado grocery store shooting. That's the kind of article that I'll click on and read. Instead of 10 dead, 4 wounded, I want to read one that gives the opportunity for those that were there, those that were bystanders, had a chance and share their story on how they were able to survive that given situation. So we're going to kick it to Paul now for covering something that's going to be really the heavy part of our topic today, which is boom, hit him, Paul.
Thanks, Jake. So, a lot of Jake is right. A lot of people they click on news when they report, like for example, the Boulder, Colorado shooting, 10 dead. Oh my God, they click on that right away. Because it's a sad thing, but a lot of times what happens when somebody clicks on it, right? They share it right. Oh my God, you hear about this? Oh my God, you hear about that? And it's the initial reaction is always, let's share it, let's talk about it. But rarely is the conversation, what can I do to prevent this from happening in my neighborhood? Nobody really ever thinks about that, right? And there's actually a reason for it. There's this quote, not this quote. There's this definition that was coined by Dr. Richard Osbaltison. I'm not really good at his name. I'm gonna call him Dr. O. Okay.
Hey, we'll put it down in the comments.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. He coins a specific term called the optimism bias, and the definition, I'm reading it as the belief that each of us is more likely to experience good outcomes and less likely to experience bad outcomes, causing us to disregard the reality of an overall situation because we think we are excluded from the potential negative effects. So what does that mean? That means that no matter what we see on the news, it could be down the street, it's never going to happen to us. It's never going to happen to us. And that is exactly the wrong type of approach you need to have. Now, when you're talking about, being prepared, we're not talking about becoming a paranoid schizophrenic where you think everyone's out to get you. That's not what we're saying. It oftentimes helps just to be a little bit more aware, take a few more seconds just to, observe your surroundings just a little bit more rather than bury your face in your phone. It does go a long way, So Tim, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, man, I like to talk. I'll throw something at you. Actually, that's a really good point, right? Because as a society in America, in the West, things have gotten really, really good, very comfortable, very luxurious. And that is becoming a problem for how we handle spikes of violence in our environment because we are not hunting. We are not observing and looking for threats to us like even just 100 years ago, if most of us were farming or were working in an unsafe factory, we realized that there are lots of things around us that could go wrong, that could hurt us, that could put us in a bad circumstance. This is the reason why people go backpacking or canoeing, and they end up dying from simple things, because they have completely obliterated and covered up the part of their brain that says, you should probably think about this and prepare for this. Case in point, when I taught at the State Department, we were teaching diplomats going overseas how to be safe, why security is important post Benghazi. And we would start every class with a conversation about what's happening in the news. Let me see what you're thinking. What have you been reading? And we would let these students talk about it. And then we'd say, do you realize, though, that didn't happen on the news? That wasn't a studio event. Like, that happened to real people. It affected real families and lives. The news came later to tell you about it. And it was funny because there was a lot of really smart people with a low level of life experience as it relates to violence. And they were kind of like, huh, that's really interesting. And now you are going to a place that often happens on the news. And it helped kind of make that mental transition to like, oh, wow, and get them out of exactly what Paul was talking about, that like, well, it won't happen to me. Actually, you're going to a place where there is a much higher likelihood that it could happen to you or around you. And so let's prime our mind, let's prime our mindset for what should we do anytime we go anywhere where it's likely to happen. So active shooter event at your house, how likely? Probably not very likely. You have to really be at a public place, because the definition really of the reason somebody wants to do an active threat event is because they want a body count, usually to gain notoriety. So any place where there's a gathering of people, any place where there's an exposed gathering of people, especially if firearms are prohibited, if it's public access, all of these different things raise the risk. And then you can look at your location, right? So we all know that probably you're less likely in the US to experience an active shooter at a coffee shop than you are at a school. So if you're a university student or you work in schools or elementary, you have a higher risk because of the paradigm that's being followed, right? If you're in ministry, if you work at churches or any religious area, that's becoming pretty political now, right? So you're at a higher risk. So let's talk about that, guys. How should we be thinking about these situations that we put ourselves into in normal life?
Here's the big. Oh, go ahead, Jake.
Nah, man, you're straight. I got a few things, but go ahead.
No, I just, thanks, Jake. I was just wanting to talk about a few things, right? Being at the higher risk, and this is not my data. This is data from the FBI's own source, right? Based on 18 years of study and 18 years of studying active shooters, not counting 2019 and 2020, almost 45% of all active shooter incidences happen in places of business. Places of business, private businesses are actually at the highest risk, followed very closely by schools. So between educational institutions and private businesses, they make up almost 65% of all active shooters, where we use the FBI's definition of active shooter, which states that 3 or more people are dead in any single incident. I just want to think about that for a second, right? 3 or more dead in any single incident, and the majority of those happen in places of business and education.
Is it three or more dead or 3 or more shot?
3 or more dead.
Okay.
Yeah. The other definition I use, which is the gun violence, the gun violence archive definition of active shooter, that definition is 4 or more people shot fatally or not.
So, hey, I'm going to cover this real quick because I pulled it up. So I sent this to you a while ago, Paul. One thing to add to what you talked about with businesses, workplace violence, whether it's directly workplace violence, like an insider attack type thing, or just a target of opportunity to a business. But this is what's important from OSHA. So how does OSHA's general duty clause apply to active shooter attacks? And let me read this briefly. The courts have interpreted OSHA's general duty clause to mean that an employer has a legal obligation to provide a workplace free of conditions or activities that either the employer or industry recognizes as hazardous and that can cause or are likely to cause death or serious physical harm to employees when there is a feasible, keyword, feasible method to abate the hazard. Okay. And feasible, real quick, does not mean the 5-minute video of Run, Hide, Fight that was put out back in 2013. Yes, that could be a check in the box for your organization, but that's like teaching military guys and gals deploying to a combat zone a 5-minute lesson on shoot, move, and communicate. And that's it. Not good enough.
And here's the thing too. I'm really glad you brought that up because California, I'll use California for example. California mandates first responders and police departments. They're mandated to have active shooter training, but the specific bill, AB 1598, for those of you that want to look it up, does not mandate private businesses. It encourages businesses, as it mentions specifically private businesses several times in the bill, but it does not mandate private businesses, right? Like they mandate sexual harassment and workplace violence. So given what we just talked about, and Jake, just to double clear, just to clarify, you are talking about the OSHA Act of 1970, right? With that's the general duty clause you're talking about?
Yeah, general duty clause, OSHA.
Yeah. So it's mandated by Fed OSHA, but no state, if it's not mandated by state, they're not going to come knock on your door and saying, well, you don't have it, we're going to fine you. But food for thought. If an active shooter were to actually happen at your place, do you really think that the insurance company is going to care whether or not you follow the law or not? Or are they just going to say, nope, you didn't take good precautions, we're not going to cover you, bye?
Well, so
Well,
that brings us to like another, right? So you said the OSHA thing, but there is a legal concept called duty of care that all organizations that maintain employees have to follow, but it's an evolving definition of what is reasonable steps to take to ensure the safety of your employees, right? And so it really does by industry, by type of business, by employee location, it does change. And this is a good risk management exercise, a due diligence exercise. If you're a security person at an organization, you should be with legal and HR often, talking about how security is helping with the burden of duty of care.
Yeah. And that, Tim, that's exactly what I was going to add. We talked about risk management stuff as part of the sub categories that we will discuss. That is a massive part of risk management because it's all about, hey, this is how you avoid large lawsuits. But that's after the fact of this is also how you help mitigate the damage with your employees when an incident occurs. This is how you save lives. Training is the one investment. I always tell my boss this all the time. Training is the one investment we control. We must invest in training. If we have extra money at the end of the year, that's a problem that we didn't put that into training. And he's very cool about that. We bring in some amazing instructors and spend a lot of money to bring in some of the best out there. But I want to shift real quick to what Tim talked about and what I somewhat mentioned about target of opportunity with the Carver matrix. So Carver matrix is something that was developed back in, it's very common. A lot of people know about it. It was developed back in actually World War II by the French, but we started using it as a U.S. during Vietnam. It's a way to assess, but also assess what to attack against our enemy, but also what to protect for us and our allies. So it stands for criticality, accessibility, recruitability, vulnerability, effect, and recognizability. So it's all about, 9/11 would be a perfect one for the enemy. They used the Carver matrix in their Manchester documents, and Ali Muhammad used them. So Carver matrix is important, and that's what we have to think about. What are we protecting against? Yes, there's going to be lone attackers, but there's also like the Paris attack. Remember that one, 2015? Okay. That was planned out, and that was Carver matrix. Dude, at its core.
8 to 10 people shut down a global city.
Mumbai attacks too, same thing. Yeah.
You guys remember the LA shootout where the guys walked, I think it
Yeah.
was a Bank of America, and they were like body armored out and everything.
Yeah.
And you guys remember that one?
Yeah, the North Hollywood
Oh, dude.
bank robbery. You
That
know,
was about
Yeah.
yay high.
this is actually a cool conversation. I propose that our next episode actually go through like the attack cycle and the intelligence cycle and how these things are planned and how people can kind of recognize it. And we can talk about different events, maybe even. But do you guys want to talk more about today, like what we can do when we're out and about?
Yeah, I do. Well, I wrote some notes down. I'm sorry to cut over again. I just want to make sure we get the time and get these out. I'll share these real quick. Let me share these three things, and you guys take it from there. So this is for readiness purposes. A way to talk to people that don't want to buy into the quote that Paul mentioned earlier of that bias. A way to talk to them, and I work with public schools. Like that's my primary thing now. I worked with military for many years. And here's the thing, when I work with people that are forced to go through the training, you oftentimes get a lot of pushback. Now, when you're going through as an instructor, putting people through as an instructor that are paying to come through, they're like little kids at candy stores, like they're excited, like they're like a sponge that's real dry, and they just want to suck up all that fluid. But here's the thing you can use for people, and I'll share it with you guys. Tell me what you think. What I like to do is in a large audience, I say, look, raise your hand if you've ever been in a car accident. And then I have everybody look around, look at all those hands. About 80% of people that I've ever asked raise their hand. About 80% raise their hands for car accidents. And then once I ask that question, I say, now, how many of you all chose to make the decision to wear your seatbelt? Keep your hands up. And I mean, almost every time, all the hands stay up. Sometimes you'll see a hand drop, and I'll say, hey man, stop trying to be cool. Put your hand up, And the thing is, people make that decision to wear their seatbelt. So in a car accident, I can't control a whole lot outside of my personal space and what I have control over on the roadway. But what I do control is wearing that seatbelt, that thing that helps mitigate the damage that I can do. Now, the second thing you can do is ask people about like the White House. Okay. How many times has the White House been attacked or been attempted to be attacked? A lot. But let's just say it's been like 13 years since any incident ever occurred at the White House. Does that mean that the Secret Service Uniform Division lowers their security because it's been a long time since there's been an attack? No, they don't. They keep that security tight for a reason, because that tight security is probably why they haven't had an attack. And then the last thing is the good old farm dog and the farmer. Okay. The farmer has all these cows. Okay. Farm dog's 13 years old. For 13 years, the farmer's had no coyotes, no wolves taking out his calves. The farm dog dies, and the farmer's like, I'm not going to replace this dog. The next season, he loses 3 calves to the wolves or coyotes. It's all about that whole entire bias that Paul mentioned. In our minds, when things don't happen, the predictability comes in, and we can predict so much. That's a dangerous thing in our human brain. We got to stop trying to predict things and just tell ourselves, master what I can control and understand the things and respect the things I can't. All right, I'm done.
Yep. When we were teaching kind of immediate action in the aftermath of an IED or any ambush overseas, we started to teach that basically if you are on the X, so the X is whatever the ambush point is, the most vulnerable place for you to be, the place where your adversary has the best chances of success. They have the most element of surprise. They have the best opportunity to escape. So lots of damage for you, very little damage to them. In the first 5 to 10 seconds of that attack, when the explosions go off, the gunfire starts, it's 50-50. There's not a whole lot you can do to affect your outcome if you are on the X. But after the initial attack phase happens, in that 5 to 10 seconds, people have to start reloading. People that are in the attack zone, shake the cobwebs out and say like, oh my gosh, I need to do something. What is it I can be doing? And also, this is about the time that the attackers are starting to think, should I continue? Should I advance? Should I retreat? What's going on? They're reassessing their situation because their initial plan is over. You have a 90% survival rating if you just make a decision to move anywhere. Even if you move towards where the enemy is, if you get off of that X and you say, I'm going there, I'm going to that place, and you move there, and then you sit down and you look, and then you make another decision to move. If you can move 3 times, 90% survival rate, because you have moved away from the plan of the attacker. And so how can we take that mindset into our daily lives, Paul?
So basically, what you have to do is just be a little bit more aware, right? Nobody needs to learn karate. Nobody needs to learn tactical, cool, scary drills that many people think special forces guys do. That's not what it is. Like Tim said, if a situation like that happens, get off the X, right? Theodore Roosevelt once said that the best thing to do is the right thing. The next best thing to do is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing. Do something, right? And the other thing is just to kind of add on to situational awareness. And when I say situational awareness, it's not like some kind of hard term. Just look at your surroundings. There's this thing called Hicks' Law. Hicks' Law states that it is the reactionary gap between the decision processing time, right? It takes a moment for your brain to think about something to do before it can actually do it, right? Your brain sends signal to your body. That's how it works. That's how we move. That's how we eat. That's how we do everything, right? If you're not prepared for it, it's going to take that much longer for your body to react. If you're situationally aware and you think, okay, if I'm here and I'm in the situation and let's say I sit next to the exit, if something bad happens, that's my exit. Now, if something were to happen, that you already know that's where you're going to go because you already subconsciously told yourself that.
Why is it that every time we're on a flight, they say, look around and find where your nearest exit is? So if something goes wrong, you already know what you should be doing.
Flight attendants do that. Why can't we? They tell us that every single time with that blow on the little, I don't even know what that's called, that
the life vest.
Yeah, there you go. Like the floaty thingy
thing right there.
Good luck.
And I don't know what the statistics are, but it seems that it's less likely to be in a plane crash than it is to be involved in a violent event in society.
Yes.
Yes. Well,
I also they create your situational awareness.
So I want to take this to a whole nother step. So don't forget about the observation piece of the vehicle attacks that are very common, because the vehicle attacks require a whole lot less tangible things for the attacker. And I remember I was getting we were getting some ice cream, and I was with a bunch of my nieces and nephews a couple years back, and we were this long line. This place is great. It's called Nathan's Custard Stand or whatever, Dairy Barn. We're in line, and I was like, we're very exposed to even just a out of control vehicle, like someone, let's say someone has a heart attack or someone sneezes or someone's on their phone, let alone a actual planned incident, a planned attack. So, and I remember telling my niece this, she was like 16 at the time. She was like, oh my God, like that's terrible. And I'm like, that's real. This is the observation. And she's like, that's just like that's scary though. I'm like, what's more scary is the fact that we're not actually acknowledging it and accepting it. And this was right around the time, I think, when that nice France attack happened, where like 78 people were killed, or 86, whatever it was, that tractor trailer. And seriously, this matters for the observation piece. This, we literally, it's hard, guys. It's hard to grow throughout life. Especially when you're conscious about yourself. It's hard to grow without really becoming more observant. And I think we all three have that observation piece, I think, going pretty well for our professional and personal perspectives. but we should challenge people to just be more aware of your physical environments.
Yep.
And that's the first step you can take. And what that goes down to is you communicate and you try to just keep your eyes up. So go ahead, Tim.
There's a lot of places in the world to where you get caught in violence. That it's such a chaotic environment that, violence is so prevalent that you just get caught up in it without really seeing, for sure, if you're a normal person, you can be out in the Middle East and like something happens, you're like, oh my gosh, how'd this happen? But spending time in the Middle East, we've all three gained the ability to realize like, hey, something's about to happen. However, in the US, we opt in. We see things that are weird and wrong all the time, and we say, hey, you know what? It'll probably be all right. But we opt into vulnerability all the time. And why don't we kick this off again next week and really talk about some more statistics and specific things we opt into on a daily basis, and what things that somebody can do to actually mitigate their circumstances if they find themselves in this situation. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I think
man.
it's a great idea.
All right. You guys have any last thoughts?
Sorry, I was sending a message to Tim. I'm sorry. I was sending a message to Paul, Tim, when you said that. So
You're
I
not
had
listening to me, bro?
a focus moment. No. Okay, let me share this while we're here. Okay. This is perfect. Okay. Just like, where's the button? Where's the button? This is good ending. Paul said to me, Jake, would you end the call by saying, what do you think? Like, comment, and subscribe. No, I will never, ever, ever, ever do what I hear all day long on my kids' shows. Like, comment, subscribe, like,
because
comment,
if you know
subscribe.
anything about social media, you know that if you like it and you want to see more of it, you would like, comment, and subscribe. We would never say that.
Right. Don't ever say subscribe.
But I will say,
I dare you.
Oh, go ahead.
I was like, I dare you to do it.
But I will say that we're three guys, and I don't know. There's not really a good way to end this. We're gonna have to figure this one out. Hey, we're three guys in the ball, and we're gonna be back at you next week for part 2 of this discussion.
We're gonna throw more balls at ya.
That's right. Bye.